A little bit about tonight's programme. We have 6 speakers for you, each giving a presentation of 15 minutes. We'll have 3 speakers, then an interval, and then the final 3 presentations. We'll round the evening off with a Q&A session. It is with great regret that I inform you that unfortunately John Pilger will not be attending this evening due to illness. On behalf of BLOOMSBURY, I do apologise, but I'm sure you can appreciate this is a completely unforeseen and unavoidable circumstance, so I do hope you all understand. John has sent a message for everyone. It reads, "Dear all, I had hoped to join you tomorrow evening, but I was being far too optimistic. The bronchitis that came in early this year is hanging on. From past experience, I know it won't lift for a few days more at least. I am very disappointed and so sorry to have let you down. I like the idea of the media on trial, and I very much appreciated the commitment and energy with which you put the event together. Please give my apologies to the audience. I'm sure they'll be rewarded by the contributions of all you fighters for and defenders of real journalism. I read that the BBC's Nick Robinson can't quite understand why the public are rumbling, those paid to keep the record straight. It must have something to do with social media. Surely not the unwatchable, unreadable, and unbelievable media. Even fake news is a corporate brand designed to cover what so much of the mainstream media has been dishing out for years. This makes the media on trial so very important. All power to you, and again, my sincere apologies, John." Well, I'm sure we're all unanimous in wishing John a full and speedy recovery, and also in assuring him that he hasn't let anyone down. John really does epitomise everything a true journalist should strive to be, and I'm sure he's been a massive inspiration to many of our speakers here tonight. So present or not, he's contributed anyway. So tonight, BLOOMSBURY has travelled from its sleepy home in the West Country of England all the way to the Big Smoke to host 6 very special speakers. We're truly honoured to have them all here with us tonight. Our panel this evening hail from a myriad of professional backgrounds, from world-class investigative journalism to academia to public office. So tonight, we all turn our lens and focus upon the corporate media, upon the so-called free press, which should be a cornerstone of any true democracy. For without factual, unbiased reporting, how can we, the public, be made aware of any wrongdoing? Well, the answer's simple, we can't. Without that vital truth, we have no foundation upon which we can build our resistance to this ravenous war machine. So tonight, with the help of our esteemed panel, we shine a light on the dark shadow cast by corporate media as we try to clarify the truth about some of these pivotal geostrategic conflicts. Conflicts which have caused untold misery and hardship for millions upon millions of people. Before we commence with the first of tonight's presentations, John has requested that we show you an excerpt from a conference that he attended, which focused upon the media's complicity in the promotion of war.
There are plenty of people in the BBC and in other organisations that feel the huge disquiet at the role that their newspapers and media organisations play in the promotion of war. In fact, the most powerful media has never been, in my opinion, apart from a brief period when the Sunday Times was attacking programs like Death on the Rock and others, has always been the respectable media, the one with reputation, like the BBC, like The Guardian, the kind of lesser evilism of journalism. And there's often a reluctance to understand that it's in that media in the United States where, speaking of the New York Times and the Washington Post, not Fox Media, these so-called respectable organs of media have, in my view, played a much more important role in promoting all the wretched euphemisms of aggression, of aggressive war, such as humanitarian intervention. The BBC has played a central role. It's an old story. 1966, one of the BBC's most brilliant mavericks, a young man in his 20s called Peter Watkins, made a film called The War Game, which reconstructed the effect of a 1 megaton nuclear attack on London. Those of you who will have seen it, I'm sure, will have been moved by it, and I've seen it a number of times. That film was viewed by the Lord Normanbrook, I think it was, who was then the sort of Chris Patton of the BBC, immediately took it to the Cabinet Office, to Sir Burke Trend, who was then the Secretary of the Cabinet Office, showed it to him, and a top-level meeting was called between all the top BBC people and Whitehall officials. And they agreed that it was the most brilliant film and accurate and restrained, but that what it would do would cause an unnecessary effect on the attitudes of people, of viewers. You don't have to translate that much. It was a threat. Its truth-telling was a threat. It was an intolerable truth. It told the truth about the prospect of nuclear war and the danger of an attack of nuclear war at the time. So it was banned, and it was the reason it said, the press release said it was not for faint hearts. It was that ban held for something like 18 years. During that time, every Director General renewed the ban. And I remember there was Sir Ian Trethowne who said that he was worried that of its effect on the elderly and on people of limited intelligence. That almost gave the game away. And when it was finally put out in the 80s, with the distinguished broadcaster Ludovic Kennedy introducing it and perpetuating the lie, hardly anybody then on television really saw it. It was a small audience. Now, that censorship by exclusion and omission runs right through the BBC, which has produced, with the best production values in the world, some of the finest, most refined state propaganda. And until we understand that that's in a way its function. And I'd be here all day going back with many other examples. The Iraq War, the BBC came out worse in the University of Wales study, the media tenor study that put the BBC at the very bottom of those broadcasters around the Western world, that gave any kind of glimpse of an opposing view that represented what the majority of the people, for example, of this country said. It's absolutely structural and endemic. And I think that to understand that, we have to really not allow ourselves to be cornered, put into cosy little liberal corners by even discussions about regulation. I mean, sure, there should be right of reply, and perhaps there might be one day, but as the Guardian letters page fill up with what to me are a bunch of non sequiturs and don't address the fact that that journalism in the so-called mainstream is not addressing the world as it is. And the Petraeus affair is all very interesting, but I mean, Petraeus was an absolutely crap general. By his own light, you can only see by the masses amount of sort of stuff all over him that he'd done nothing. But what Petraeus did do, he did say, and I paraphrase him, that the enemy was not the Taliban, but the enemy was at home. And that's the essence of this, that the enemy was right here, that the enemy is the public in the United States, that the enemy in this country is the public in Britain. He coined the phrase perpetual war. That's his contribution. And we're distracted massively because he had a spot of adultery. Who cares? The fact that this man, it's very easy to call somebody a war criminal because there are so many of them. But this man played a very, very important role in setting up a propaganda model that the Pentagon, which spent in 5 years something like, according to the AP, something like $4.5 billion on public relations, but Petraeus's job was as a public relations man, was to seduce the media, which he did. Have you seen, any of you, by any chance, John Simpson's interview with him? I have regard for John Simpson, but my God, I saw it the other day. And, you know, it was the obsequiousness towards this 10th-rate product of a corrupt military officer class, which is in the United States, which has been sacrificing its young men and women, as well as the civilians it's assaulted for so many years, not understanding the real role of Petraeus as one who is there to deceive the rest of us. It's like the coverage of Obama, 16 pages in The Guardian, including something that, if it went in for pictures, Pravda, at the height of the Stalinist time, could not have equaled. It had a picture of Obama and the family, who are forever hugging and kissing each other. We know that. Something's wrong. Okay. The best is yet to come. That was the headline. And that's from the serious newspaper. It's funny, but it ain't a joke. Because Obama is not a weak president. Tell that to all those Afghan young people and children and women and all the others that his drones have killed, that he's a weak person. A man who every Tuesday, we are reliably informed by the New York Times, encouraged apparently by the White House, who has a kill list, who ticks them off. And I heard Mark Mardell of the BBC say, well, actually, he's very careful about the people that he decides to assassinate, to murder. And this seduction, this liberal seduction of our readers and of us as journalists and broadcasters Instead of ourselves trying to understand what normalise really means, Edward Herman's great phrase, normalising the unthinkable, and the part that we play in the division of labour in normalising the unthinkable, of perpetual war, of what is going on in the Middle East right now, of minimising the culpability of our own governments, of teaching our young journalists never to look in the mirror of your own societies. We don't actually say that, but that's the message. Always see the demons, always see the criminals, and always see the rapaciousness, if you like, not at home but somewhere else. It's something that runs right through our media colleges. It runs right through our right thinking, a lot of our right thinking colleagues in journalism, and it needs to change if we're going to have a world that actually hears the truth and we tell the truth.